Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second session of this Insights to Action Summit. And I'm delighted we have a familiar face returning in Maurice Gonzenbach, who is one of the co-founders of Caplena, really one of the pioneers of natural language processing, AI for understanding unstructured text and language collated from all sorts of different sources. Could be online reviews, could be survey, open ends and verbatims, and so on. Now, we have lots of other content from Caplena, which you can dig deeper and learn more from, hosted from their directory listing on the Insight Platform's website. I particularly liked a recent-ish webinar that Maurice gave that talked about how chat-based talk-to-data interfaces and sort of traditional visualization and dashboards can play together. And there's a really good online on-demand webinar that you can watch there if you want to go deeper. Now, on to today's presentation. If you're in the previous session, you'll know how this works. You can post comments, you can say hello in the chat, post your questions in the Q&A tab if you can, and then there's a little emoji button down the bottom to say show your appreciation if you want. Now, Maurice, I'm going to hand over to you now to take us through how you've put feedback to work with Kia Europe. Thanks, Maurice.
Thank you, Mike, for that nice intro, and I'm going to share my screen now. And with that, you should see it. If not, then please tell me, because I don't see any of you.
We're not seeing your slides. We're seeing sort of screen share of this event window at the moment.
Okay, let me retry in that case.
It worked perfectly before.
It did. Give me a sec.
Anyway, hello, Joanna. Welcome back, and thank you for saying hello to everyone. If anyone else wants to say hello in the chat, tell us where you're joining from. It's always nice to know if we've got an audience spread around the world. And thanks. That's working perfectly now, Maurice. So no need for me to ad-lib anymore. Over to you.
Great. Second try, and perfect. Let's go. So welcome to the session on electrocharged insights, putting feedback to work across Kia Europe. As Mike introduced myself already, I'll keep that part brief. My name is Maurice. I'm a techie by background, co-founded Caplena now almost 7 years ago, and have been working in the feedback analysis space since. So really deep into open ends, deep into making the most out of your analysis. But today's presentation is a bit less about the technical background and actually more a case study of Kia. And I haven't hallucinated that. I have developed it together with Julia, who is with the CX team at Kia Europe. Unfortunately, she cannot make it today as she is on a well-deserved sabbatical. And so you'll have to listen to me, but I'll do my best to fill in the void that she left and take over her part as well. So with that, let's dive into it. Maybe very briefly about Kia Europe. I guess most of you have seen their cars. I do think I see them more frequently than ever before. They are present in 39 markets in Europe, and they are actually very strong on their ESG, so environmental, social, governmental vision, with a goal of having 58% of global sales from electric vehicles by 2030. So they're really pushing hard on these on the electric vehicles, and the CX team is really playing a crucial role here in driving the rollout of these EVs and making this not only a sustainable but also a enjoyable journey for their customers. So that a bit the background. Now, let's dive into today's topics, and I want to start with asking you a question. Which one do you think is true? Which statement here do you think is true? Comparing Kia's EV, so electric vehicle customers compared to their ICE, internal combustion engine customers, what do you think, where do you think EV customers are different? Is it that they, A, expect a higher touch handover? Is it B, that they more often request vegan leather interiors? Or is it C, that they are more likely to request ambient lighting that syncs with their mood playlists? Now, make your choice. If you want and are bold, please paste your response in the chat. I'm going to resolve it towards the end of this presentation. So obviously the ones that should know this are the CX team at Kia. The harsh reality is that if you had asked this question to the team in 2022, they would have struggled with it. It would have taken them weeks to answer, because the only way to answer it would have been to create a new survey with multiple choice questions, roll it out to their customers, and find out which option it is. Also, the insights would have stopped at either the answer is A, B, or C, because they weren't really able to go beyond that. And if they had asked an open end, they would have just said, hey, by the way, here are 10,000 open ends, do with them whatever you want. And finally, and maybe most crucially, it wouldn't even have been clear that it's the CX team to ask, because there were different CX and marketing teams for different regions, for different verticals, looking at different data, so no clear central 360-degree view on answering such questions. And the story we want to show today is how Kia has gotten to solve this, because if you ask them today, they will have an answer within 1 day. And besides the answer, they'll also give you the root cause. So why do people prefer the vegan option, or why are they more demanding in the handover process? And finally, it's very clear who to ask. It's the CX team that owns this for all of Kia Europe. And the way they got there involves 4 components, 4 steps, which I want to touch upon today. There's the culture, the technology, the process, and finally, some results. So let's get started with the culture. If you really want to have a 360-degree view on your customers, it's hard to do that if your leadership doesn't buy into it. And luckily, leadership of Kia has a mission statement, which includes the sentence that they want to be customer-centric and foster a people-focused culture. Now, many companies have that, not all execute on it, but I do think that in management it becomes more and more prevalent and more seen that it's really an essential pillar to have a successful business. So Kia has this people-focused culture, and the CX team took up on that mission statement, and which is very important, they also were able to show how they can contribute to that mission in a very concrete way. They said, hey, we need to improve our systems, we need to improve our technology in order to be able to deliver on these things. And by the way, that is the ROI you can expect. These are the concrete outcomes that we are able to deliver with these improved toolings. And that's how they started 2.5 or 3 years ago by now. So why did they have to tackle the technology, or what part of the technology did they have to tackle? They were already collecting quite a bit of customer feedback from various channels, about 150,000 comments a year that they aggregated, and they had a bunch of different solutions, some in-house, some from third-party providers, to try to understand it. They used Google Translate to do some translations. They did some word clouds in Tableau. They used Monkey-Learn for sentiment analysis, but it wasn't really a coherent view, and maybe more importantly, the quality of the analysis was not sufficient for them or their stakeholders to truly trust the outcomes. So they were always doubting, is this really now accurate? Can I really make decisions based on the outcomes? And that's why they decided to improve this, take the next step here. And that's where we as Caplena got into the game. So very quickly, for those of you that shamefully don't know us yet, we are a feedback analysis platform. What we do is we don't collect any data, but we aggregate it from various sources. That could be your big customer experience management platforms like Qualtrics, Medallia. It could be your Question Pro, your Alchemer, or any other survey platform you use. Or it could also be
Is it just me, or have we lost Maurice? Okay, I think we've lost Maurice's connection. Oh, are we back? Maurice, are you there? Can you hear us? Okay, let's see. Let's give it a minute and see if Maurice is able to get back in. Maurice, you're here. Hi. It looks like we had a slight disruption on your line, so we lost you just as you were taking us through the second step in that 4-step process. So your slides are no longer sharing. But I think
okay, I stopped sharing. That's unfortunate to hear. Is it fine again now?
Your audio is fine, and we can see you fine, but we just can't see the slides. So you were on the slide with the 4 steps in the Caplena value proposition.
Yeah. So let's try this again. Sorry for those hiccups. I'm on Ethernet. Please tell me if it interrupts again.
We will.
Exactly. So we were at we collect the data. Most importantly, now we analyze that data, and we enable you to share it in your organization, and then hopefully act on it. So you can have a meeting on it, and hopefully even something comes out of that meeting, and you can implement change to really make improvements based on these insights you discovered. So what does analyze mean? Well, the basis for really being able to look at open-ended text is doing a counting. So categorizing, coding, applying theme analysis, however you want to call it. You want to categorize your feedback to be able to quantify it. An example here, the friendliness of the in-flight crew never reached cruising altitude. Snacks were surprisingly varied and affordable though. So you have the crew friendliness mentioned in a negative way, the snack price mentioned in a positive way, and the snack selection mentioned in a positive way as well. This is what you want to have in the end, and it's very important to have this sentiment analysis on a per topic level and not only on the entire verbatim level. Now, before being able to do that, or in order to be able to do that, we first need to define which themes or topics or codes do we actually want to quantify. So how do we define a code book, which could look something like this? Now, this looks like a very simple topic, defining a number of categories, a number of themes, but it's not that simple because you want to have your topic collection be MISI, meaning mutually exclusive but collectively exhaustive. That means that these topics here, they never overlap because that makes quantification hard, but in their entirety, they cover all the topics that are mentioned in your data. And that requires a process, which of course nowadays makes use of LLMs. But the reality is that LLMs are not enough. You need some other technologies in order to really get to a high quality code book, which can be something between 30 and 70 topics usually, but can go up to 300 topics if you look at very complex cases like Lufthansa. So what is our approach there? And there are 2 specific things we do in addition to, of course, leveraging LLMs. The first thing we do is that we use statistical post-processing. So we do a lot of these LLM calls, and then we figure out which of the topics were mentioned often enough by the LLM to be really important enough that we present them to you. And the second point is that we incorporate the user into all of these steps to be able to provide their knowledge and guidance to the system. So let's have a quick look how this works in practice. We have a very simple data set here. This is a telco example. And once we have uploaded the data, we generate some topics. So we present an initial version of the topic collection based on the LLM and these statistical post-processing steps. But we also give you the option to adapt things. You can edit every topic, you can merge things. We show you potentially rare topics that fall below a certain threshold, but that might still be relevant for you. We ask you for feedback. We show you similar topics that you can then either keep or merge depending on how important you deem them. And we also allow you to interact with the topic collection by providing a prompt to generate new suggestions or to even redo the entire topic collection based on your prompt. So here I asked it to give me more topics about the contract. It generated them, but I could also say, hey, redo everything and categorize it that way. So 3 elements here: LLM based, statistical reduction, and having the user in the loop. Once we have solved that first challenge, the second challenge I have already alluded to is, can I really trust my results for decision making? So obviously we do this categorization automatically afterwards, but it's only worth anything if I trust it. And again, we have 2 things we provide here to enable you to trust it. The first one is that we give you a quality score. This is the F1 score, a bit technical. It shows you how well the AI understood your data and this project. And the second lever we give you is that you are able to guide the AI in the right direction by either providing it more context on the project, by updating the descriptions of these topics. So we auto-generate descriptions, and you can then describe the topic. So you want crew friendliness only to be applied in these cases. And finally, you can also guide it by reviewing a couple of rows and thereby nudging it in the right direction. So very important step, but also important to note here that the improvements here have really been massive. So we have just released the latest version of our AI 2 months ago, and I think in maybe 75% of the cases, you really get to a human level categorization now out of the box without any fine tuning. But still, you want to probably do a quick quality assurance just to be sure. And the final step that technology can help with and can enable you to do is to get your insights to be consumed. So oftentimes you put a lot of work in the analysis, but then you have PDF reports lying around and not being consumed. And we think that's a shame. And so one of the channels that also Mike has already touched upon is that we have developed a chat functionality, like many other platforms, but opposed to many other platforms, we combine the qualitative and quantitative aspects. So you're able to either just browse through the data, let it guide you on, just give you an intro on what happens here, but more importantly, asks very specific questions. So what do people say about manufacturer Apple versus Samsung segmentation here? And then the system will respond with which topics appear how often, which significant differences there are, so none in this case, and underpin this whole thing with charts and numbers that are based on this quantification that I did before and therefore really reliable. So with that, I have hoped I have showed the technological aspects of what we can do to support this customer-centric vision. I want to summarize that, our product vision here, in 3 memes. How to do work in 2025. When I get a task nowadays, my first reaction is oftentimes, do I really have to do that manually? Is there really nothing automated out there? So go out and of course I'll find some AI tool or just throw the data into ChatGPT and it will be happy to provide me huge amounts of results, pages of results. But then I look at these pages and I'm like, well, not sure, can I really trust them? Which part shall I now use? So it goes oftentimes a bit bonkers. And the approach that we favor and that we try to implement in our software is a guided AI approach. So yes, you have all the power of the latest AI fanciness, but you have these control gates at every part of the process to be able to review the results, guide the AI, and make sure they're reliable. So With that, let's put the technology aside and go more into the process and the results phase. So the part that usually Julia would do and not me. Now, how does the insights process now work? With all this fancy technology, how am I going to handle questions that will come up? Oftentimes, questions to the CX team will be something like this in this form. Why was the NPS slightly lower this month in France? And the CX team needs a process to handle this. Of course, it will be a bit different every time, but there are some general guidelines on what you can do to answer this. What Kia Europe will usually do nowadays is that they start with a driver analysis. So after I have done the categorization and counting and everything, I can create visualizations on how often which topic appears. But that doesn't necessarily tell me how important a topic is. It could be that the topic price is mentioned in 80% of the cases, but actually it doesn't really impact the overall satisfaction. So you want to do a driver analysis to find out which things actually cause the most pain and have the biggest impact on your NPS or whichever metric you want to optimize. So let's say that's car delivery handover experience. Then you go into the segment only consisting of these topics for the specific market you're looking at, and you do a qualitative deep dive on that. So you let the AI with summaries generate potential resolutions. You also do a qualitative check by hand to see what do people actually say about this topic and how could it be improved. And based on that, you can then really create these actionable insights and not only have a general number that went in one or the other direction. Now, of course, the collaboration here between the CX team and your other stakeholders are absolutely essential. And how Kia does it is that they have various formats in which they discuss insights and bring them to the teams. They have these very high level quarterly meetings with top management where they look at the NPS and the most important drivers for its change. Then they have monthly NPS meetings, so more on an operational level. What can we concretely do? What can we learn from the changes that have happened? These monthly NPS meetings are cross-functional collaborations across departments and different verticals as well. And a third format is that they have direct discussions with market managers to look at their markets and what could be done. And finally, they even go to the dealer level. So one specific dealer, looking at one specific dealer, talking to them and discussing concrete options on how they could improve the experiences based on the feedback. And as a layer on top of that, they are also working on allowing access to the data by these people directly, so that the insights don't need to come from the CX team, but that everyone in the organization is empowered to access the insights whenever they feel they need them. So what are the results? What is the result that we have to show after these couple of years of making this work? And to resolve the initial question, the thing that EV customers expect to be handled differently than ICE customers is the handover. So handover has been identified as one of the most defining experiences in the journey of purchasing an automobile. And Kia has worked extensively in this direction across various functions to improve this. And one of the most important levers is having customized training for everyone involved. So across the dealer network and in every dealer that sells Kia EVs, they have implemented training programs specific to these EV vehicles because the questions that people ask are just different than with ICE cars. And with continuously improving these specific things that people have criticized, they were able to increase their EV NPS by 6 points, not percent, 6 points improvement over the past 3 years. And they have used about 250,000 comments across the customer journey that were analyzed for this very specific purpose. So getting towards the end of the presentation, maybe a quick summary of the timeline. How did things evolve? 2022, they had this situation they weren't happy with, so they started to evaluate different solutions. In 2023, they started with an initial implementation, a proof of concept that usually is very quick, only takes 2 weeks, and you can get a feeling for if the platform really suits your needs or not. Then there was a longer evaluation period, sort of self-server. They really clicked around and tried if this solution would help them and how it would work for their different stakeholders. When the purchasing decision was made, the initial setup is very quick, only takes a couple of weeks, but it was also only on a part of the data. And that's something we always recommend. Start small, start iteratively. Don't try to solve everything at once. Start with one use case where you have the data and then grow it over time. That's what they did. They expanded projects, and in 2024, they added 5 feedback sources across 14 subsidiaries and various departments. And this year, they're now the big push has been on enabling this self-service access for various stakeholders in the company, which in Kia's and also in our opinion is absolutely essential to make the most out of this data, because if it just sits in a silo, nobody benefits from it. And they're also exploring additional feedback sources, mainly from review sources at this moment. So to summarize, how does Kia see their customer experience view, their 360-degree customer experience view? They want to be at every touch point that the customer is before, during, and after the purchasing experience. So it starts with shopping tools, social media, website. They listen wherever the customer is. Then over the purchasing experience, which happens through the dealer. So also there you want to be involved in getting feedback at this stage. And then throughout the ownership experience from, of course, service points, but also at charging endpoints, you really want to be continuously listening to the customer wherever they are to have this holistic view on what customers tell you and how you can improve on it. And with that, I'm at the end of this presentation. I do hope you could take something with you. And there is also a QR code here if you want to download the slides. And with that,
thank you. Thanks, Maurice. Thank you very much. And I would say wonderful use of GIFs. I love the idea of that the autonomous AI agent, which is really just a hysterically spinning baby. I think that's a great visual metaphor. But I'm kind of still recovering from the fact there's no statistical difference between Apple users and Samsung users from your example there. I'm like, this is going right to the heart of my my sense of my own identity. I can see six different pieces of Apple hardware from where I sit.
Well, I would say, well, don't trust the data then. Then it's like it's demo data, so it's not really. I wouldn't make any decisions based on this dummy data.
Okay, that's good to hear. Great presentation. I was struck. One of the things that I wondered as you were going through that, the source data that you're using for the experience insights, is that NPS? Is it more unstructured? Is it coming from reviews? Because the automotive, the history of automotive customer satisfaction was very, very fine grained in a way that just used to, I think, exhaust respondents. Was the dealer's desk tidy? All the kind of really detailed stuff. So can you just tell us a bit about what goes into that?
Right. So yes, in Kia's case, it is NPS that they measure, but how they usually structure it is that they start with just a general NPS question. How likely would it be that you recommend on a numerical scale? But then they follow up with a open-ended question instead of having 10 different multiple choice, because then exactly what you said happens. People get tired of it. They drop off, right? Nobody wants to fill out a 30-page survey nowadays. That's just, I think those days are over. And with the nice thing about the open end, you can just cover such a huge space of opinions, of thoughts, really top of mind thoughts with one single question. Of course, that evolves as well, right? We see more and more these chatbots also being deployed there, that they maybe view answer in a very generic way. Service was bad, they will pose a follow-up question like what is it specifically about the service that you dislike. But still, the open-end format is a very rich format, and usually the basis. So that's the one source. But then again, they combine different things. They also combine reviews, which is in the end also rating and an open end. So the format isn't that different entirely. And then you also have, of course, these large automotive studies being conducted by third parties, which they also source. So it's various different components that come together. But the most important one and most rich one is still the touch point surveys, I'd say.
Okay, great. You talked a little bit about, LLMs. An LLM on its own is not enough. There's this sort of framing of the LLM for the first initial generation of the topic map, I suppose, and then statistical reduction. But then human in the loop feels like there's still a pretty strong role for the analyst to make value judgments or to apply experience to say those two things actually roll up into a single topic, or we need to explode that one into more depth. Is that how the process typically works? You've got people sort of reviewing, fine-tuning what's come out of the AI initially.
Yes, but I think maybe on a very high level, sort of the task of analysts shifts more and more from the pure analysis, data crunching part, more and more to the interpretation part. So that becomes ever more important, because the analysis itself, we're really on a good way of automating that. And yes, you need to make these calls, right? Do I want to keep these topics together or not? The reviewing part becomes smaller and smaller. There is really not too much that you need to do there usually. But the task of interpreting the results and making the decision, hey, is this suggestion of changing the price, is that something which is viable for our company or not? Should I go to my product team and tell them they should lower the prices, or am I better off in saying you should improve training for XYZ? I think these kind of decisions are absolutely still in the human domain, and it's our wish that the insights professionals can spend more time on making sense of the data based on numbers, but putting them in context instead of spending time on the number crunching itself.
It sounds like I know your Julia's not here, but it sounds like the team at Kia Europe are doing maybe more of that what's going on here, what if type responses than maybe they were able to do previously. It sounds like they're kind of more engaged, I guess, with the stakeholders as a result of this.
Absolutely. I mean, if you spend all your time doing the creating charts and maybe even step back doing coding, that is then you don't have too much time left to actually decide which measures should I implement, or talk to other stakeholders, right, and figure out what makes sense for them. And that is where now the focus is really making use of the results, talking to the other departments, and actually making them aware even that there is this source of feedback. Because what we also see in many large corporates, and not talking specifically of Kia here, but other large corporates, is that many departments don't actually know there would be a source for the data, right? So I think it's a big part of the job of CX teams is also internal awareness, right? Making sure that people know where to ask.
Yeah, I think this is a really fascinating territory, because it cuts to the heart of what a lot of people in research, CX, UX, a lot of these roles are feeling, well, what's the future career? What value is going to be added by the expert, the analyst, the advisor? And you showed the gifts that I like. You said, look, manual isn't really an option, but the autonomous agent thing isn't really an option either, because you end up in chaos. You need this sort of guided AI as the sweet spot. And I noticed yesterday there was one of the original co-founders at OpenAI had said fully agentic capabilities are a decade away. They're not going to be here. I mean, what's your view in the rate of progress and being able to delegate more and more to autonomous AIs? It feels like you can still see quite a strong role for humans in the loop, even if the job is changing.
I mean, of course, we're super bullish in general on the capabilities of AI, right? And we're building it into every angle of the product. But in the end, the product it serves a specific need, and that is solving the problem. And I think currently the way is still to have humans in the loop in many places to make sense of the results, to do sanity checking, right? To do that back of the envelope. Hey, does this number, is this kind of in relation to what I would expect, or might something be off entirely? And that, I mean, that is the way I see it, like these AI enabled products, and it's going to be everywhere, right? It's going to be absolutely everywhere. But I do think the value currently arises more in those enabled products and not in the completely anonymous ones where you're in the end a bit unsure of the result. And also a second part to it is the UI, right? I think it's a super exciting point because until now, most people associate AI with just a chat, right? Basically ChatGPT is AI for many people, and text is not always the most efficient form to convey information. And so that is, I think, a very exciting area on how to bring the human into the loop here with more efficient, more dense, more compact UIs that can get the context from the human in a nice and engaging way.
Yeah, really interesting. Overlaps a little with the previous conversation we were having with Niels from Coveo about multimodal on the front end, the way the data is captured, being able to analyze video content along with text, but actually on the analytics and the way that you dig into the data, having different formats that are not just text based. I know. I mean, I'm defaulting to voice for everything now. Through AI interfaces, and I think that's got the way in which we interact will definitely be evolving. I've just realised we're nearly out of time, and I've been asking all the questions. I don't know if anyone else had questions for Maurice. You have a minute or two to post them into the Q&A. Or into the chat window there. And obviously, if you like what you saw, you can show some little appreciation there with that emoji button. I'll just give you a minute to come up with anything you might want to ask. With a preview of what's going to be next in about 2 minutes' time, we have the first of our impact bites. A couple of people in the UK who previously worked in a number of different organizations, client-side roles in Insights, have been assembling what they're calling this bigger than biscuit series of case studies, and we're sharing 3 of them over the next 2 days. They are real ROI stories that show how much was spent on the research and what the commercial impact was at the back end. It's the sort of thing that has been established in advertising, in media, to show return on media investment and the effectiveness of ad campaigns. We haven't been great at telling those stories in research, so Suzanne and Danny have been collating these. And the first one is going to be about Primark turning a very modest research budget into serious revenue. So that's going to be in just over a minute. Maurice, it doesn't look like we are going to get any more questions from our audience. Any questions? But thank you very much for answering mine. I really enjoyed that, and great to see it, really brought to life how this stuff is making a difference inside a big brand like Kia. Like you, I see them everywhere, so they're clearly doing something right. Thank you again to you and to the Caplena team for helping to put that together. Everyone else, we are going to be back in about a minute's time with the story of Primark and the impact bites from the Bigger Than Biscuits group. Thanks, Maurice. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.